pastor of Midwest City, Pastor Stefan.
What's up, church? How are you? Man, it is so good to actually finally be meeting after snowpocalypse or snowmageddon or whatever you want to call it. But just so glad to be hanging out with you guys, whether you're here in the building or maybe you're at home watching. Just glad to spend some time with you guys. So I got to the Midwest City campus a few months ago, just in time for the great floods of 2021. So when your campus floods twice in a week, you're not getting through that alone. So I want to thank IT, tech, location support. Thank you guys so much for helping us get back online. Could not have done without you. So I got to the Midwest City campus a few months ago, and like any pastor would do, when you get to a new campus, you want to learn names and stories, and you want to meet people. Well, every once in a while, there is a story that just completely transforms your perspective. So one of the first times I got to the campus, I met Chris and Kathy Schultenkamper. It took me 3 weeks to figure out how to say their name. Schultenkampers, and they are highly engaged volunteers at the campus. So Chris serves on the tech team. He serves in operations. Kathy serves in Life Kids. They're life group leaders. They're community leaders, and they are significant givers at the campus as well. So Chris, when I met him, he said, hey, Pastor, I would love to sit down with you, take you to lunch, and share my story. And I'm thinking, hey, it's fantastic. I would love to hear your story. But when we got to lunch, I was completely unprepared for what happened next. So as we sat down, he started to describe his story, and he said in January 2020, we lost our niece to a heroin overdose, and she had 3 young girls. And because of questionable behavior from the husband, then we ended up taking in the 3-year-old and the 4-year-old, and the youngest went with another family member. And then we're still actually helping with the DHS investigation. And then he said in February that he was actually diagnosed with prostate cancer. And then right when he was seeking treatment, then the pandemic hit, and then his treatment was postponed indefinitely until they could figure out how to navigate the COVID crisis. Then in March, his daughter, who lives in Alaska, her husband is stationed there in the military, and he just decided he didn't want to be married anymore. So he filed for a divorce, and he left her there by herself. So then Chris is thinking, okay, this is a great time for us to go and to support our daughter and show our love, support for her. So Kathy's parents, they've always wanted to go to Alaska, so they actually waited. They waited until July. They all got tested, and then they went to Alaska. They had a great time. They wore masks. They were socially distanced. They did everything right. And all of them came home with COVID, to which 2 or 3 weeks later, both of Kathy's parents passed away from COVID. So by this point, I am emotional, teared up, and I just can't imagine what this family has gone through. I mean, many of you had challenges this past year. You dealt with COVID, and you dealt with isolation and homeschooling and all these things. But just what this family had been through was just absolutely shocking to me. But I noticed something strange, because Chris, as he's telling me the story, he is not upset. He's not sad. He's not emotional at all. You know, and since he's not crying, like, I gotta stop crying. So I suck my tears back up, and then I look at him, I'm like, Chris, how are you doing this? How are you this calm? How are you this strong? How are you this confident? And he said, Pastor, service and praise is not what we are asked to do, it's what we are called to do. It's what we're called to do. He said, we stay connected to our church family all year long. So when the church was closed, we were at church online. When we were reading our YouVersion Bible app, we were studying scripture. When the church was open, we were the first ones in line back in the building. Yeah. We worshiped God through the good and the bad. And then he said, here's the key. He said, our present brokenness prepared us for future ministry. Yeah. Think about that. Our present brokenness prepared us for future ministry. Pastor Craig, it reminds me of the talk you gave at All Staff when you talked about in ministry we're going to hurt and we're going to be broken. And to continue that thought, yes, we're going to be hurt, and yes, we're going to be broken. And then we got to brush ourselves off and get back to work. And get back to work. Last time I checked, there's still people who don't know Jesus. There's still people who need to know the love of Christ. We got to get back up and get back to work. So maybe you had a hard year. Maybe you had a hard year. Maybe you lost some relationships. Maybe there's some financial difficulty. Maybe, the racial tension, difficult for me. Maybe you lost someone in your family. My wife, Stephanie, lost 6 people in her family this year. And so you go to God, and you cry, and you hurt, and you pray, and you heal. And then you brush yourself off, and you wipe the tears away, and you get up, and you get back to work. What did Jesus do when he was in the garden, and he was hurting, and he was broken? He prayed to his Father that this cup could pass from him. But then he said, not my will, but whose? But your will be done. And then he got up and he brushed himself off, and he got James, Peter, and John, and he said, hey, here comes my betrayer. Get up. It's time to get to work. And then Peter cut some dude's ear off, and Jesus was like, man, you kidding me? And he grabbed it, bam, and he put it back on. He was working even as he got betrayed. Come on, it's a work day. It's a work day. So Chris and Kathy, they didn't have time to feel sorry for themselves and 2 little girls to raise. And so Chris, the difference in his therapy that he chose proton therapy because he would have 20 visits with the same medical team versus 1 visit with a surgeon. That's 20 times to get some work done. 20 times to share the gospel. It's a work day. It's a work day for them. So, yes, we endured 2020. Yes, it was tough, but never, ever, ever forget the fact that the work you have done is changing lives. Whether you're operating a camera on Church Online, maybe you're writing code for a YouVersion, maybe you're creating curriculum, or you are creating videos for your volunteers, or maybe you're proud of yourself because you didn't kill your own kids during quarantine. Or maybe you led us through the most complicated season of ministry that any of us have ever seen. Because of what you have done, and because of the work that you continue to do, families like Chris and Kathy, who, yes, they struggled during 2020, but now their faith is stronger than ever. That is because of the work that you do to lead people to become fully devoted followers of Christ. Thank you guys.